Welcome to the Science of Hockey, the podcast where we break down the science behind ice hockey. I'm the analyst, your host, and every week we explore the data, research, and evidence that shape how we play, train, and understand the game of hockey. From biomechanics to performance psychology, we take you beyond the rink and into the research lab, giving you insights that go beyond hearsay and into what really makes the difference on the ice. Whether you're a player, a coach, a parent, or just someone passionate about the sport, we're here to bring you scientifically backed information in a language that's friendly and easy to understand. So grab your skates and let's dive into the science of hockey. Hello, and welcome back to the Science of Hockey. I'm the analyst, and today we have an exciting discussion about the science of ice hockey performance. We're diving into an updated perspective on what drives peak performance on the ice, based on an article titled The Physiology of Ice Hockey Performance, an update published in the Scandinavian Journal of Medicine and Science in Sports. I won't butcher the authors' names, but they are in the description. This paper provides a deep dive into the intense physiological demands of ice hockey, including the role of energy systems, the impact of fatigue, and how players can optimize their recovery. Get ready to explore what makes ice hockey one of the most physically demanding sports out there, and how players can push the limits of their endurance and performance. Let's lace up our skates and get right into it.
All right, let's do a deep dive into the science of hockey. We've got this research paper from the Scandinavian Journal of Medicine and Science in Sports, and it's really packed with insights into the physiology of ice hockey performance.
Yeah.
You ready to kind of unlock the secrets of what makes these athletes tick?
Absolutely. It's fascinating stuff.
Yeah.
We'll be uncovering how the body powers through a hockey game.
Right.
Think energy systems, fatigue, recovery, even how diet and hydration play a crucial role.
So basically, by the end of this deep dive, you'll practically be a sports scientist.
Yeah.
So let's start with the basics.
Okay.
What kind of physical demands are we talking about here? It's not just about skating fast, right?
Right. While speed is obviously important,
Yeah.
it's the unique type of movement in hockey that makes it so demanding.
Yeah.
Unlike sports like soccer or basketball where there's constant running,
Yeah.
hockey has these bursts of intense activity followed by short recovery periods.
Okay, so those shifts we see on the ice, those are key.
Absolutely. Those shifts are, while gliding might not burn a ton of calories,
Right.
it's the transitions, the accelerations and decelerations that really tax the body.
Oh, yeah.
Imagine trying to stop and change direction on ice while carrying all that equipment.
And let's not forget the physicality of the sport. All those checks and battles along the boards.
Exactly. Those hits and scrums require immense strength and power.
Right.
It's like adding weightlifting to an already intense cardio workout.
Yeah.
All of this means hockey players need a blend of endurance, speed, and strength to succeed.
So what's going on inside the body to power all of that action? This is where those energy systems you mentioned come in, right?
Precisely. We have two main systems at play: aerobic and anaerobic.
Okay.
Think of the aerobic system as your long-distance runner.
Go ahead.
It uses oxygen to fuel sustained efforts, like those longer skating shifts we talked about.
And the anaerobic system is more like a sprinter.
Exactly. It kicks in for those short bursts of intense activity,
Right.
those sudden sprints and checks
Yeah.
where you need immediate power.
Right.
It relies on stored energy and rapid fuel breakdown, kind of like an emergency backup generator.
Okay, so let's break those systems down a bit further.
Okay.
First up, aerobic.
Mm-hmm.
The research mentioned average heart rates during a game hit around 85% of maximum.
Yeah,
That's got to be tough to sustain.
it is. And what's fascinating is that even within a game, heart rates spike even higher during each shift,
Wow.
often approaching maximum levels.
Really?
So even though a shift might only be 30 to 80 seconds, the body is working incredibly hard.
Wow. So it's like a series of mini sprints all strung together.
Exactly.
That's where aerobic fitness becomes so crucial, right? To help players recover between those intense bursts and get ready for the next one.
Right. And this is where a concept called oxygen kinetics comes into play.
Okay.
It's basically how quickly your body can deliver oxygen to your muscles at the start of exercise.
Right.
The faster your oxygen kinetics, the quicker you can tap into that aerobic system and delay fatigue.
So if I'm understanding this correctly, good oxygen kinetics mean you can recover faster between those bursts on the ice.
It absolutely is. And there are ways to train and improve your oxygen kinetics.
Okay.
But that's a topic for another deep dive, maybe.
Okay, we'll add that to the list. So that covers the aerobic side.
Right.
Now let's talk about that anaerobic system,
Yeah.
the one that fuels those explosive moments.
You bet. These are the moments where players rely on stored energy and rapid fuel breakdown to generate that immediate power.
Yeah.
The research mentioned two key players in this system: phosphocreatine, or PCR, and glycolysis.
Let's unpack those.
Okay.
PCR first.
Think of PCR as your instant energy reserve.
Okay.
It's the first fuel your muscles use for those super short bursts, like a quick acceleration or a powerful slap shot.
Okay, so it's like a quick burst of energy, but it doesn't last long.
Exactly, which is where glycolysis comes in.
Okay.
It's the breakdown of glucose or sugar for energy. It kicks in slightly later than PCR and helps sustain those high-intensity efforts for a bit longer. Think a longer sprint down the ice.
So PCR for the initial bursting glycolysis to keep that power going a bit longer.
Exactly.
Fascinating. But these systems have to recover pretty quickly, right? Those breaks on the bench don't seem that long.
They aren't, and that's why efficient recovery of both PCR and the ability to clear the byproducts of glycolysis is crucial.
Right.
If those systems don't recover quickly enough, performance starts to suffer.
Right.
You might feel that as a burning sensation in your legs, a sign your muscles are reaching their limit.
And that's just within a single shift.
Yeah.
I can only imagine how those demands add up over an entire game.
Yeah.
We've talked about how the body gets energy, but what about the fuel itself?
Right.
Where does the body get the resources to power all those sprints and checks?
Well, the primary fuel source for ice hockey is muscle glycogen.
Ah, yes, glycogen. As many hockey fans know, it's basically stored carbohydrates within the muscles,
Right.
ready to be converted into energy when needed. It's kind of like the body's energy bank for those intense efforts.
A perfect analogy.
And during a game, those glycogen stores can really take a hit.
Yes, they can.
Studies have shown reductions of up to 60% in muscle glycogen levels, even in games with relatively short playing time.
It's true.
Wow, that's a lot. So players could actually run out of fuel during a game.
Yes. And if you're not fueling properly, your performance could tank in the third period, just when the game's on the line.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So what are some strategies players use to make sure they don't hit that wall?
Well, that's where things get really interesting, and we'll dive into those strategies in just a moment. But first, one area that's getting a lot of attention is consuming carbohydrates during a game. You've probably seen those sports drinks on the bench, right?
Yeah, definitely. Always wondered what was in those besides water.
Well, they're packed with electrolytes, and you guessed it, carbohydrates.
Right.
While there's still more research to be done, some studies suggest that consuming carbs during a game can help maintain blood glucose levels and might even help spare some of those precious glycogen stores.
So it's like giving your body a mid-game energy boost. Smart.
Exactly. Especially as the game gets more intense
Right.
and players are burning through those energy reserves, it's all about staying ahead of the curve.
Okay, that makes total sense.
Yeah.
We've talked about energy systems and fuel, but now let's get into the part I think everyone wants to know about: fatigue.
Okay.
We've all felt it, that burning sensation during a tough workout.
Yeah.
But what's actually happening in the muscles?
Well, a big part of it is the buildup of metabolites and ions in your muscles. Think of them as byproducts of energy production.
Right.
When you're working really hard, like during a hard shift on the ice,
Yeah.
these metabolites, things like lactate and hydrogen ions, start to accumulate.
And that's what causes the burn.
Exactly. It's like your muscles are sending a signal that they're reaching their limit.
Interesting.
The research also mentioned PCR levels and pH changing within a shift.
Yeah, what's the connection there?
Well, as you burn through those PCR stores,
Your muscles become more acidic. That drop in pH contributes to that feeling of fatigue. And remember those hydrogen ions we talked about?
Yeah.
They play a role in that acidity too.
So it's like a chain reaction. You burn through energy metabolites, build up pH drops, and boom, fatigue sets in.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And the faster you can clear out those metabolites and restore that pH balance,
Yeah.
the quicker you can recover and go hard again, which is why those short shifts and rest periods are so crucial in hockey.
Okay. So that's fatigue within a single shift. But what about fatigue across periods? How does the body change as the game goes on?
That's where things get really interesting. Some studies using player tracking data have shown that, on average, high-intensity actions actually decrease towards the end of a game.
Wait, really? You'd think players would be going all out in those final minutes, especially if the game is close.
You would think so, right?
Yeah.
But the data suggests that there's a drop-off in those explosive movements as the game progresses.
So is it that players are physically less explosive as they get tired?
Or is there something else going on?
It's likely a combination of things. Part of it could be strategic.
Okay.
As fatigue sets in,
Yeah.
Teams might shift their focus to puck possession and more conservative play, especially if they have a lead.
Makes sense. Conserve energy, protect the puck, and avoid risky plays that could lead to turnovers.
Exactly. But of course, physical fatigue definitely plays a role too.
Yeah.
We have to consider factors like dehydration and overheating. Even though it's a cold environment, players are generating a lot of heat under all that gear.
It's true. I never thought about it that way. It's like they're running a marathon in winter clothes.
A great analogy. And if players aren't properly hydrated,
Right.
that can accelerate fatigue. Dehydration can lead to an increased heart rate, a higher perceived exertion level, and even impaired decision-making on the ice.
So staying on top of hydration is critical for maintaining performance throughout the game. No wonder you see those players constantly sipping from water bottles on the bench.
Absolutely. It's a key piece of the puzzle when it comes to managing fatigue in hockey.
Yeah.
And those small sips throughout the game are much more effective than trying to chug a whole bottle during a short break.
Okay, so we've talked about how fatigue develops.
Right.
Now let's talk about the flip side, recovery.
Yeah.
How long does it take for the body to bounce back after a game?
That's a crucial question for any athlete.
Yeah.
Interestingly, research suggests that hockey players might recover faster than athletes in some other sports.
Really? I would have thought the opposite, given the intense physical demands and all those hits.
It is a bit of a surprise, but one theory is that it's related to the nature of the movements in hockey.
Yeah.
While it definitely involves impacts and explosive movements,
Right.
there's not as much constant pounding as you see in sports like soccer or basketball.
So less overall impact and stress on the joints.
Right, which translates to less muscle damage, a major factor in recovery time. There's even research comparing hockey recovery to other sports.
Oh, wow.
One study found that blood markers of muscle damage and inflammation were significantly lower after a hockey game
Interesting.
compared to a soccer game.
Wow, that's pretty convincing evidence. So less muscle damage means a faster bounce back.
Yeah.
But what about those depleted glycogen stores we talked about?
Right.
How long does it take to replenish those?
Well, it seems that glycogen replenishment happens fairly quickly in hockey players.
Okay.
One study even suggested that a high carbohydrate diet in the days following a game could be enough to fully maximize those glycogen stores.
So those post-game pasta dinners we always hear about are actually based on science.
They are. Of course, individual needs vary, but the point is those glycogen stores can bounce back relatively quickly with proper nutrition.
Yeah.
It all ties back to those energy systems we talked about.
Right.
The body is constantly adapting and replenishing its resources.
Like a finely tuned machine. Give it the right fuel and maintenance and it'll keep performing at its best.
A perfect analogy. And that's what makes the physiology of hockey so fascinating.
Yeah.
It's a complex interplay of energy systems, fuel, fatigue, and recovery. All these elements have to work together.
So it's not just about being strong or fast.
Mm-hmm.
It's about understanding how your body works and using that knowledge to optimize your performance.
Exactly. There are other factors that influence recovery time too,
Okay.
like age, fitness levels, sleep quality, even the mental aspect.
Right.
Stress and psychological fatigue can definitely impact recovery as well.
It's like a holistic process then. Taking care of your body and mind is crucial for optimal recovery.
You got it. It's all about finding that balance between pushing your limits on the ice and giving your body the resources it needs to recover and adapt.
Right.
That's what separates the good players from the great ones.
Okay, well, we've covered a lot of ground here. Energy systems, fatigue, recovery, the importance of fuel and hydration.
We have?
All these pieces fit together to create that incredible athleticism we see on the ice.
It's true.
But I'm curious, is there anything else that stood out to you from the research? Any other interesting takeaways?
You know what there is? There was this one study that got me thinking about the interplay between fatigue and strategy. And it really challenges some of our assumptions about how players perform towards the end of a game.
Ooh, that sounds intriguing. Tell me more.
This study actually found that while overall high-intensity actions decreased towards the end of the game, successful high-intensity actions like winning a puck battle or making a key defensive play
Right.
actually increased in those crucial final minutes.
Wow, that's fascinating. So even though players might be physically fatiguing, they're somehow able to elevate their game when it matters most.
It seems that way.
Yeah.
And it suggests that experience, strategy, and mental toughness play a huge role in overcoming those physical limitations.
It's like their hockey IQ takes over.
Yeah.
They're making smarter decisions, choosing their moments, and finding ways to be effective even when their bodies are screaming for a break.
Exactly. This research really highlights the complexity of hockey performance.
Yeah.
It's not just about physical capabilities, it's about how those capabilities are utilized within the context of the game.
So it's like those clutch players we see who always seem to step up in big moments. Maybe they've learned to manage their energy and focus throughout the game.
Yeah.
So they have that extra reserve when they need it most.
It's a fascinating theory, right?
Yeah.
And it opens up a whole new area of research.
Right.
How do we train players to not just be physically fit, but also mentally resilient and strategically savvy, especially under fatigue?
That's a great question. And it makes me think about how we can apply some of these insights to all levels of hockey, not just the pros.
Right.
Like if I'm playing in a beer league game, should I be focusing on pacing myself throughout the game so I can still make those game-winning plays in the third period?
That's a smart approach. And it goes back to what we were discussing earlier about glycogen depletion.
Right.
If you're burning through all your fuel early in the game,
Yeah.
you might not have anything left in the tank when you need it most.
Maybe instead of going all out for every loose puck in the first period,
Yeah.
I should be more strategic.
Yeah.
Choose my battles and conserve some energy for later.
Exactly. And remember, proper hydration and nutrition can help you maintain those energy stores throughout the game. Yeah. It's all about giving your body the resources it needs to perform at its best.
This has been such an eye-opening deep dive into the science behind hockey.
It has.
I feel like I have a whole new understanding of what these athletes go through on the ice. We've talked about how energy systems, fuel, fatigue, and recovery all intertwine,
They do.
and how strategy and mental toughness play a crucial role.
Absolutely. And I think this deep dive has given us all some valuable insights into optimizing hockey performance.
Yeah.
Whether you're a player coach or just a passionate fan, understanding these physiological factors can enhance your appreciation for the sport and maybe even give you an edge on the ice.
And speaking of edges, I have one final thought for our listeners to ponder.
Okay.
We talked about glycogen depletion being a major factor in fatigue.
Yeah.
But what if there were ways to help preserve those glycogen stores, especially during those crucial later periods?
Ooh, that's an intriguing question. What do you have in mind?
Well, the research mentioned that dehydration and overheating can actually accelerate glycogen depletion.
Okay.
So what if cooling strategies between shifts could help mitigate those effects?
Yeah.
Like imagine if players could find a way to quickly lower their core body temperature during those short breaks on the bench.
That's a really interesting idea. There's already research on cooling vests and other techniques used in other sports.
Right.
Could those same principles be applied to hockey? Could it help players stay fresher later in the game?
It's definitely something worth exploring. And it highlights how even small changes in recovery strategies could potentially have a big impact on performance.
You've hit the nail on the head. There's so much potential for innovation in this field.
Right.
And I'm excited to see what the future holds for optimizing hockey performance.
Me too.
Yeah.
And who knows, maybe one of our listeners will be inspired to take on this challenge and discover the next breakthrough in hockey science.
That would be fantastic. And as always, we encourage everyone to stay curious, keep learning, and keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible in sports and in life.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Rep.
Thanks for joining us on this incredible deep dive into the world of ice hockey physiology.
It's been a pleasure. Until next time.
Thanks for tuning in to the Science of Hockey. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to share it with your friends, teammates, or anyone who loves hockey as much as you do. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And we'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment to let us know what you liked, what you'd like to hear next, or any questions you have. Your feedback helps us make the show even better. Until next time, keep your skates sharp, your mind open, and keep chasing the science behind the game.